On to cursors. Cursors are a method for iterating over a result set in TSQL. And it's basically a way of taking your results one row at a time. And really, most of the time when you're writing TSQL code, whether you're working with just SSMS, writing a query, or you're putting in a stored procedure, or you're working in a function or wherever it may be, usually you're just writing TSQL code that does things as a batch. You're going to do a join, or you're going to do multiple joins and pull data together. But with cursors, what it does is it allows you to take those results and in TSQL loop through that result set. Kind of like how you'd loop through a result set if you were processing through in code. So let's take a look at what a cursor is. The way a cursor works in SQL Server is you start out by declaring some variable and you as type cursor. You then set the cursor equal to a cursor for a specific query. And in this case, I'm going to be using the sales.store table in the AdventureWorks database. Here I'm going to select the top 50, and what the cursor is going to do is it's going to be associated with this query. But at the point we allocate the cursor, it's not actually running the query at this point. It's just saying, here's the query that's going to be run. Then we open the cursor, and that's the point that it actually goes and brings in the data from all the tables and starts processing. So we open the cursor and then we say, fetch next, or give me, given that we're at the very beginning of it, give me the very first item back from that result set. And we're going to put it into these variables called business entity ID and business name, which I didn't include the declarations of those, but those would be declared as an integer and a varchar. Once we've got the first one back, we then go into a loop, like what you run into a lot, like a for loop or a while loop, where we're just going to keep pulling from this cursor and doing something with it as long as there's results there. And the way that we tell if there's results is there's this global variable associated with the fetch status of the current cursor that's at fetch status. And as long as that equals 0, that tells us that there's more data available. As soon as it's not 0, we're at the end of the result set, or there's no more data we can get. Then inside of the while loop, I'm just using the print command to print out the result sets. Here we're going to print out the business entity ID and the business name, and I'm just going to cast that to a varchar and concatenate them together there. You could do other stuff like that, like you could run an update statement there, or run another select statement based off of something, or go run a stored procedure based off the values that are being put into that result as it's looping through this. And then at the bottom of the loop, I'm just going to use that same fetch next command that I used earlier and say, give me the next result set there, or give me the next row in the result set. So each time through, it just fills out this business entity ID and business name variable with whatever was returned from the column specified in business entity ID and name up here in our original select statement. So at the point you close the cursor, that's going to go and clean up any open connections that are there in regard to looping through the result set. Now you might say, well, why doesn't it just do that automatically when I fetch the very last item in that result set? With cursors, although you only see fetch next on this slide, you can fetch prior and go forwards and backwards through the result set. And then the deallocate, that just releases the memory that's been associated with that item. Here's the sample for the cursors. We're going to be using the AdventureWorks database. And let's just take a look at the sales.store table real quick. So what we've got in the sales.store is a bunch of stuff, but these are a bunch of different stores. And it might be stores that the company works with, or vendors, or different places that they provide to. But either way, it's just a list here that has an ID and a name. If we want to look at that on how we would use a cursor, what we're going to do is go through, similar to what we did on the slide a moment ago, declaring the variables that the results are going to go into. We declare the cursor, we associate the cursor with our query, we open it, we fetch the first result, and then as a while loop, we go through and it's just going to print out to our results window, one for each row, and then we close the cursor. So we highlight all of that and run it, and you see what we get is some output here that is just one row being printed out for each of the results in that query. What this is allowing you to do is, instead of putting in a print statement here, it's where you could perform other actions based off the results there. Maybe you want to do some calculations, some math based off of it, or an update statement, or something else. That's just the way you can loop through the result set.